everybody. We're on to the last in our Be Still series. We've been looking at slowing down. We've been looking at giving God opportunity to build relationship with us. We've been looking at how some of the barriers that we might find to being still. And we're coming to the last one today, and the passage that I'm going to read is a magnificent example of when God takes a hold of his people and forces them to be still, and for good reason as well, as we'll see. So this is from Exodus chapter 14, and what's happened just beforehand is that Moses at God's hand has led the Israelites out of Egypt, where they were in slavery, and they're on their way to the promised land, and they've only just left, but they're on their way to the promised land. And then this happens. When the king of Egypt was told that the people had fled, Pharaoh and his officials changed their minds about them and said, "What have we done? We've let the Israelites go and have lost their services." So he grabs all of the chariots and the horsemen and everything else, and he sets out after the Israelites. And then it says, as Pharaoh approached, the Israelites looked up, and there were the Egyptians marching after them. They were terrified and cried out to the Lord. They said to Moses, "Was it because there were no graves in Egypt that you brought us to the desert to die? What have you done to us by bringing us out of Egypt? Didn't we say to you in Egypt, 'Leave us alone, let us serve the Egyptians'? It would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the desert." Moses answered the people, "Do not be afraid. Stand firm, and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today. The Egyptians you see today, you will never see again. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still." Then the Lord said to Moses, "Why are you crying out to me? Tell the Israelites to move on. Raise your staff and stretch out your hand over the sea to divide the water so the Israelites can go through the sea on dry ground." And then what happens is that Moses does as he's told, finally gets the Israelites combined behind him, stretches out his staff, the waters part, and the Israelites walk through on dry ground. But that bit in the middle, when they are petrified, and Moses says, "Do not be afraid, stand firm, and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring to you today. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still." So I'm wondering, the first question today for all of us to consider is, what is your default setting? When things are going really badly, when some crisis arrives in your life, which it arrives for all of us, you know, big crises, little crises, what is your default setting? Because it depends, I guess, on our personality type. To a certain extent, what our default setting is. It's like that thing that you wonder to yourself, if I knew there was a burglar in my house in the middle of the night, what would I do? Would I stick my head under the covers and pretend it wasn't there? Would I be the one leaping out of bed with a machete ready to go and, you know, how dare you and all of that? What is your default setting when a crisis occurs? And I guess that our default settings are all different. And some of us will be thoughtful and think things through, and some of us will just want to take immediate action to make things right and do everything that we can to get through this crisis or get over the crisis or to try and change the course of the crisis. And some of us will be frightened and will just sit and worry. And some of us will, you know, we will all react in different ways. And I'm wondering what your default reaction is, because you see here the Israelites here kind of reverted to type. They kind of reverted to moaning, which they were very good at, blaming everybody else. Goodness, isn't that something that we sometimes do? Try and put the blame onto somebody else, try and just decide that it's somebody else's fault that we're in the mess that we are in. That's all the stuff that the Israelites did. But you know, I kind of don't blame them to a certain extent. Yeah, you know, they'd lived a horrible existence under the Egyptians, and now they finally think that they're going to get their freedom, and then they see the Egyptians coming after them again. I don't blame them for being terrified. I don't blame them for being cross and angry and lashing out and being upset and trying to put the blame onto somebody else. We can see what their default solution was. I think that one thing that they are doing is that they are definitely focusing and fixating on the problem. And they're not necessarily looking to where the solution might be coming from. You see, with me, I know with me, I'm an action taker. So if I come to a position where I'm in any kind of crisis at all, or where I have any kind of challenge at all, if I can take action to fix it in any small way, if there is something I can do, then I feel better, because at that point I feel like I have at least some small measure of control over the situation. If there's something I can do, I still feel like I'm in control. And I'm really, really not very good at letting go of control. But by the very action of doing what God told the people to do here, be still, you're kind of relinquishing control. You're making that choice actually in the moment to do nothing until you know what the right thing to do is. And it wasn't until Moses, God through Moses had got those Israelites to just stand. You don't need to do anything. You just need to stand and be still. And then I'll give you further instructions as to what you are to do. And in this case, it was for the Israelites then to walk on through the dry land that the Lord created for them to solve their problem. God says to us, whenever we face a crisis, first of all, be still. Stop looking at the problem and start looking at where the solution is going to come from. God says to us, if you are still and you look to me, then I will fight for you. Now, God doesn't promise to be like some celestial vending machine and sort all of our problems out for us. But what he does promise is that he will fight for us. But we have to be still. We have to relinquish that need to be in control. We need to relinquish the need to try and sort things out and fix things ourselves, because there will come a time, yes, some things you can fix, of course you can, but there will come a time where there is a situation where you can't fix it. And so God says to us, be still and look to me, because I've got the solution to your problem. And maybe that's the most important reason, the most important requirement for us to practice being still when we're not in a crisis situation. To practice our default setting being, Lord, I know that I am not in control. And I'm going to hand that control over to you. And I'm going to teach myself to be still. And I'm going to daily make that my default setting, so that when I am in a crisis, then I can be still, because that's the default. That's the thing that I will automatically revert to. And then when I'm still, I can be listening. And yes, of course, there is always action that needs to be taken, but at least it'll be action directed by the one who knows what action to take, rather than us just trying to make a best guess solution at it. So perhaps that's the most important reason, because God doesn't ever want to leave us on our own, and God won't ever leave us on our own. But unless we take time in stillness and quiet to acknowledge that and to notice that, then we're not going to be able to have the benefit of the power of that same God who parted the sea so that the Israelites could walk through on dry land. And if God could do that for the Israelites, and they only needed to be still, then he can certainly do that for us today. Hope you found this little mini series maybe a little bit helpful, and no doubt we will be back again soon. Take care. God bless.